favorite tales, retold by David Henry Wilson. Puss in Boots. Many years ago, there was a miller who had 3 sons, his mill, a donkey, and a cat. When the miller died, the eldest son had the mill, the second son the donkey, and the youngest the cat, and nothing but the cat. The youngest son was very sad and said to himself, "My brothers can use the mill to grind flour and the donkey to carry things around, and they'll earn lots of money between them. But what can I do with the cat?" The cat, however, was very clever. He'd understood every word. "Don't be sad," he said. "Just have a pair of boots made for me, and give me a bag that can be closed with a string, and you'll see what I can do." And so the miller's son took the cat to the shoemaker to be measured for a pair of boots. Cats don't normally walk on 2 legs, but after a little bit of practice, Puss in Boots could walk as well as any human. Then he picked up his bag and took it with him to the vegetable garden. There he put some carrots and cabbage leaves in the bag and set off to the forest to hunt rabbits. He waited for a while until a young and stupid rabbit came along to eat the nice food that was in the bag. Swish! The cat closed the bag. Then he put it on his back and took the rabbit to the palace to give to the king as a present. The next day he put some grains in the bag, went to a cornfield and lay down as if he was asleep. Then he waited for some partridges to come along. Sure enough, a nice fat partridge arrived and started pecking at the grains. The cat swiftly closed the bag and again set off to give it to the king. This went on for a few weeks. Every day the cat took whatever he'd caught to the king, and every day he would bow very low and say, "This is a gift from my master, Count Carabas." The king greatly enjoyed all the presents, and day by day became happier and happier, and fatter, and more fond of Count Carabas. One day the cat said to his master, "Today I'm going to make you rich. All you have to do is go bathing. Leave the rest to me." He had found out that the king and his daughter were planning to go for a ride, and one of their favorite routes was along the shore of the lake. The cat told the miller's son to get undressed and jump into the water. Then he hid all the clothes under a big stone, and he had hardly done so when the royal coach arrived. "Help! Help!" cried the cat. "My master's been robbed." "Stop the coach!" ordered the king, because of course he recognized Puss in Boots. "While my master was swimming in the lake, some robbers came and stole his clothes. Now he's as bare as a baby in a bathtub." "Oh, good heavens!" said the king, and turned to his daughter beside him. "You'd better look the other way, my dear." Then he sent one of his servants back to the palace to fetch some royal clothes for Count Carabas. The miller's son put them on, and now he really did look like a count. The king invited him to join himself and his daughter on their ride, and he was even allowed to sit next to the princess, who was delighted. The cat ran on ahead and came to a big field where farmers were making hay. He called out to them, "Listen, all of you.
When the king comes riding past and asks who this field belongs to, tell him it's Count Carabas.
Soon afterwards, the king came by and asked the farmers,
"Who does this beautiful field belong to?"
Count Carabas,
they all cried. The king congratulated the count on his beautiful field. The cat had once again gone on ahead and came to a cornfield.
"Listen, you reapers," he said. "The king will soon come riding past. When he asks who this field belongs to, tell him it's Count Carabas."
Soon afterwards, the king came by and asked who the cornfield belonged to.
"Count Carabas,"
cried all the reapers. The king liked the count even more. Again, the cat had run on ahead, and this time he came to a castle that belonged to a giant. The cat knew that the giant was a great magician and was also extremely rich. He was the real owner of all the fields and forests through which the king had ridden. The cat sent one of the servants to inform the giant that he had not wished to pass by the castle without visiting the most famous magician in the world. Luckily, the giant, who could sometimes be very nasty and bad-tempered, happened to be in a good mood when the cat arrived. He was practicing some new tricks, which he always enjoyed doing.
"So, you've come to see the most famous magician in the world, have you?"
"Yes, I have. But I can't believe some of the things people say you can do."
Whatever they say is true.
"Well, they say you can even change yourself into different animals."
No problem. What would you like me to change into?
"You couldn't make yourself into an elephant, could you?"
Straight away, the cat found himself face to face with an elephant, which even allowed him to swing on its trunk.
"That's amazing!"
cried the cat. But the next moment, the elephant roared like a lion, and hey presto, he was a lion.
"Unbelievable!"
cried the cat, although he was secretly terrified.
"But can you also change yourself into a small animal? A mouse, for example?"
The lion roared
Of course.
and disappeared. Then the cat saw a little mouse scuttling across the floor. That was what he had been waiting for. With a single bound, he jumped on the mouse, and yummy yum yum, that was the end of the mouse and the giant. A little later, the coach arrived at the giant's castle, carrying the king, the princess, and the miller's son, who was now Count Carabas. The cat hurried to the courtyard to greet them.
"Your Majesty, welcome to the castle of my master, Count Carabas."
The king was very impressed by the castle, which was even bigger and more beautiful than his palace. The cat took everyone into the dining hall. He had ordered the giant's servants, who were much happier to have him as their master rather than the bad-tempered giant, to prepare a magnificent feast. The king was delighted. There was nothing he liked better than a good feast. Obviously, this Count Carabas would be an ideal member of the royal family, especially as he and the princess couldn't take their eyes off each other. So they were married on the spot, and even when day turned into night, they were still celebrating. As for Puss in Boots, the king was so pleased with him that he made him Minister of Four-Legged Affairs. And so they all lived happily and richly ever after.
The Magic Porridge Pot. This story is about a little girl named Helen who lived alone with her mother in a tiny cottage just outside the town. They were very poor, and although the mother earned a few pennies mending people's clothes, very often they had little or nothing to eat. One cold winter's day, the mother wasn't feeling well, and so she asked Helen to go to the forest to collect some firewood. And so Helen wrapped herself up in her warmest clothes and walked to the forest. As she had had nothing to eat, she was tired and weak, and so she sat down on a tree stump to rest. But it was so cold, and she was so hungry, and she was so worried about her mother that she began to cry. "What's the matter, my dear?" asked a kindly voice. And when Helen looked up, she saw a little old lady standing in front of her. The lady was in fact a fairy, but as Helen had never seen a fairy before, she didn't know that. Between her sobs, she told the old lady all her troubles. "Well now, Helen, perhaps I can help you. First, here's an apple for you, and when you've eaten it, we'll both collect the firewood and take it to your house. And when we get to your house, I'll give you something else." Helen ate the apple, which was sweet and crisp, and then she felt strong enough to collect some firewood and walk home with the old lady. "Now I'm going to give you a special present." From her bag, the old lady, who was really a fairy, took out a beautiful shining pot. "This is a magic pot because it heats itself up, which will help you to keep warm in winter. And it also cooks your favourite food. But it can only cook one food, so you'll have to tell me which food it should cook." "What's your favourite?" "Well, I like jelly, cake, chocolate, and it would be better for you and your mother if you chose something hot and healthy. Now, can you think of a hot and healthy food that you would like?" "Is porridge healthy?" "Very healthy, and the pot would enjoy cooking that." The old lady whispered a few words to the pot, and then she gave Helen some very important instructions. "When you want some porridge, you must say to the pot, 'Porridge pot, porridge pot, make some porridge nice and hot.' Then the pot will go on cooking porridge until you tell it to stop, and to do that you must say, 'Porridge pot, porridge pot, no more porridge, that's the lot.' Can you remember that?" Helen repeated it, and so the fairy left, and Helen carried the firewood and the pot inside the house. She told her mother everything that had happened, and when she repeated the words she had been taught, the pot gave them the sweetest, creamiest porridge they had ever tasted. From that day on, they had porridge whenever they wanted it, and both Helen and her mother grew stronger and healthier than they had ever been. They were even able to sell some porridge to people passing by, which brought in enough money for them to buy a few things from the town. And that was when something very bad and very good happened. One morning, bright and early, Helen walked to the town to buy some bread and honey, leaving her mother alone in the house. Her mother fancied a bowl of porridge and said the magic words, "Porridge pot, make some porridge nice and hot." But when the porridge was ready, she couldn't remember the words that would make the pot stop, and so the pot went on cooking more and more porridge. The mother tried over and over again to find the right rhyme. "Porridge pot, more than enough is what I've got." The porridge had now flowed out all over the kitchen floor.
Porridge pot! Porridge pot! Please stop cooking on the spot!
The porridge had flowed out of the kitchen door onto the road.
Porridge pot! Porridge pot! Stop, or I'll do I don't know what!
The porridge was now flowing through the streets of the town like a sticky river. Some people even scooped it up and tasted it.
Yummy, yummy, yum, yum,
was the general reaction. When Helen saw the river of porridge, she guessed at once what had happened. Luckily, she was wearing her Wellington boots, and so she bravely waded through the porridge against the flow, and at last splashed and splodged her way into the kitchen. Can you remember the magic words?
Porridge pot! Porridge pot! No more porridge, that's the lot!
Cried Helen, and at once the pot stopped cooking. It took several days to clear the streets, but by the time it was done, everyone in the town knew about the sweet and creamy porridge and the magic pot, and more people started going up the hill to buy some. Soon the cottage became famous, and Helen and her mother earned enough money to keep the house warm all through the winter, and to fill the pantry with lots of different foods, including jelly, cake, and chocolate.
The Emperor's New Clothes. A long time ago there was an emperor who loved nothing except clothes. He spent all his money on new things to wear, and the only reason he ever left the palace was so that everybody could see how wonderful he looked in his new suit. One day 2 strangers came to the city, and they told everyone that they were tailors. They said they could make suits with the most beautiful colours and patterns that had ever been seen, but the materials had magic in them. Anyone who was doing the wrong job or was extremely stupid would not be able to see the clothes. The emperor was very excited when he heard about the magic suits. They must be very special indeed. If I had such a suit, I'd know immediately which people were not doing their jobs properly, and also which people were clever and which were stupid. And so he sent for the 2 men, gave them lots of money, offered them a room in the palace to work in, and ordered them to make him a suit. The men brought their sewing machines and sat in their room all day long, pretending to work. "I wish I knew how they were getting on with my beautiful suit," said the emperor one day, but he didn't want to go to their room himself. Can you guess why? Well, supposing he couldn't see the suit, what would that mean? Of course, he knew he wasn't stupid, and he was sure he was good at his job, which was telling everybody else what to do, but he decided it might be safer to send someone else. "I'll send the Minister of Suits. He always tells me how nice I look, so he's certainly doing his job properly, and he's obviously not stupid." The Minister of Suits went to the room where the men were working. But when he saw there was no material at all in their machines, his eyes opened wide. Then he thought to himself, I'd better not say anything, though, because that would mean I'm stupid and I'll lose my job. Come closer, said the men. Come and tell us what you think of this wonderful material. The colours, the patterns, aren't they beautiful? Yes, indeed. Oh, I've never seen colours and patterns as beautiful as these. Then the men named the different colours and described the different patterns, and the Minister of Suits listened carefully so he could report back to the Emperor. But we need more money to buy material, said the men. I'll tell the Emperor at once. You shall have all you need. The minister reported back to the Emperor, and the Emperor sent them more money, and they went on, not working on the suit that was not a suit. As time went by, the Emperor sent more ministers to see how the work was going. The Minister of Jackets, the Minister of Trousers, the Minister of Shirts, the Minister of Underwear, and so on. None of them could see the suit, but they were all afraid it meant they were stupid and bad at their jobs, so they told the Emperor how magnificent the suit was. And the tailors needed more money. At last the Emperor got tired of waiting, so he went together with all the people he had sent before, plus a few more, to see the suit for himself.